I was incredibly nervous going into this, also equally excited. And so I allowed my imagination to just run wild with it, and I allowed myself to sit in the discomfort of, I don't know what's next. What are we taking with us, and what are we leaving behind?
Hiking, nature, religious sites, a foreign country. Does that sound exciting to you or make you nervous? Like, would you sign up for it or say no thanks? I'm Kyle Hyman from Max Studios, and we're talking about this trip to Spain to hike the Camino, pray the Camino. It's a pilgrimage. And if you missed the past episodes, it gives a lot of background, check them out. But basically, it's a really long, prayerful hike. And we talked about how it can be a chance to get away from things and focus on what's important. We talked about the anxiety that can go into a trip like this and overcoming that with courage. And today we hear about some of the suffering that could be involved with a pilgrimage like this. Before we do, I want to make sure that you do something that won't involve any suffering, and that's click the thumbs up button and subscribe to this channel. It'll be super easy, probably take a couple seconds, tops. And while you're doing that, we're going to get into today's story. Dr. Trisha Ruiz shares about how she didn't want to build anticipation for the trip too much, so she avoided certain things.
So I've been to Spain before, but I was incredibly nervous going into this. Also equally excited. So throughout the course, we received presentations from Father Eduardo, which gave us a glimpse of what there was to expect. However, I made a conscious decision to not Google anything about it. I didn't want to give myself a perception or an expectation other than what I'd heard from Dr. Valderas or from Father Eduardo in course. And so I allowed my imagination to just run wild with it, and I allowed myself to sit in the discomfort of, I don't know what's next. That was part of the experience. Was allowing myself to go through this, immerse myself in this experience and allow it to unfold naturally without any preconceived notions or thoughts of what I thought Camino should be, nor what other people went to go get out of Camino. I wanted to just experience it in the most raw and pure form, and that I did.
And you might think this is how she normally prepares for traveling, but no, this is something she did specifically for the Camino.
I'm very neurotic when I travel, especially abroad. I am so OCD. I even have each outfit planned based on, I know I'm going to this tourist site here and I want to be photographed in this. And so I will label it. And that's how neurotic I pack when I go abroad. So this was a very, very, it had to be a conscious effort for me to refrain from doing all the things that I normally would do to prep myself of, I want to make sure that I experience this, or I want to make sure I experience this, because everybody said that this was, so noteworthy. I refused to do it because that is a normal practice of mine. And so, yeah, it was very, I had to be very intentional to make sure that I didn't do anything to allow myself to get the purest and most raw experience.
One time I was going on a road trip and her friend said, I hope you have car troubles. And when I asked him why, he said, because the best memories and best stories come from when things go wrong. And with all of these challenges, you might say, well, why wouldn't you just drive the Camino? Or isn't there an easier, more comfortable way to do this? And I would suggest that maybe adversity is the point, or part of the point of this. That overcoming challenges and doing hard things builds character and bonds a group together and creates more meaningful experiences. So as much as we try to alleviate suffering in this world, which is good, and relieve suffering in our own lives, there might be a time and a place to embrace suffering.
In course, we talked about how one of the beautiful parts of Camino is meeting people from all over the world. And while I was excited to do that, what I didn't want to do was do what I do stateside, which is allow myself to get really distracted. I wanted to go and intentionally be just connected to myself and to God and to be in prayer. The very first day, we all took off in a group and we're excited. We have no idea what to expect. We're so worried about missing a yellow arrow and getting off track. For the majority of it, we walked as a small group. And then the rest of the day in the hike, I finished it with Hannah, one of the students. We spent the entire hike together, and we met a couple of people from other countries, and it was a wonderful day. that evening we talked about, the question was, what were we thankful for? And so Hannah and I both shared that we were thankful for each other's company. She was thankful for mine, and that was my answer as well. I was thankful for Hannah's. Great conversation. But from that day on, I hiked by myself. And for the first 3 days, I hiked it without AirPods. I wanted to solely hear the sounds that were around me. One of the things that blew me away about Camino was within one day, I could be hiking through a field. I could be in somebody's backyard. I could be downtown in a city. And then I could end up by waterfalls and streams, all in one day. And so I wanted to allow myself to really be present. And in order for me to be really present with myself, I had to be very intentional to not allow myself to get distracted with music or through conversation with the people around me. I only listened to music on the drive out once we'd received instruction from our guide, and just sat with myself and sat in prayer and talked to God in a different way in which I talk to God on a day-to-day basis, because it allowed me to sit hours on end. And there was a bulk of the hike where there was nobody around me. And so just really leaning into the physical suffrage that I was feeling, because I am 41. I was in the military from the age of 18 to 24. And so the last time I'd done something that physically demanding was in that age range of 18 to 24. But I allowed that physical suffrage to remind me that in order for me to get to the other side of the discomfort, the relief that I'm looking for in the answers that I'm here seeking, I have to get through the discomfort. There was one particular day, I think the elevation change that we experienced, it was so incredible. It was not only, I think it was a 14-mile hike, but it was the most elevation change that we'd done in a day. And it was right in the middle of the 7 days. So we're already exhausted. You can't give it the gas and drain yourself on this day because you still have a couple of days ahead of you. And so even though it would have been so much easier on that particular day for me to distract myself and talk to all the people around me, I was very intentional in not doing it. And everybody is so friendly on Camino. Everybody will come up to you. There was a lot of Americans during that particular time. And so it was really cool. You know, people would walk up and say, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Texas." "Where are you from?" "From California." And so it's very easy on Camino to get wrapped up into that. And so I obviously would, say hi to them and chat a little bit, but keep it to a minimum. And, okay, thank you. And keep going on my way because I didn't want to fill the space. Because again, that's very easily what I do in my day-to-day life here in America. I needed out of that experience the stillness, the quietness, the discomfort, physically and emotionally, and the discipline. It got so difficult at times that I had to just keep reminding myself, Trisha, you're just walking. Keep going. That day, I definitely remember crying. I was up on the hills, and everybody was just pining over. There was some ruins, I believe. And I remember everybody was like, "Can you please take a photo of us?" And I'm like fighting back tears. I'm like, "Sure." Taking photos of them, trying to because I wasn't there for that. I was right in the depth of my suffrage. And that day was a very painful day, very painful day.
How do we do that? How do we embrace the suffering? I think first of all, we need to realize that our suffering can unite us to the sufferings of Christ and even the suffering of St. James. More on that in a future episode. Also, knowing that the destination is important, but so is the path to get there.
I had identified that one of my blind spots is that I don't always enjoy the journey. I'm always so concerned about getting to the destination. I work in enrollment management, and a lot of that is you're just hitting those next metrics. And so you lose sight of the journey of what it takes to get to those metrics. I shared that my daughter is a senior. And so right now we're just hitting milestones. It's driver's license, first car, first day of her senior year, ordering cap and gown, ordering the ring. And so it's motherhood's filled with a lot of milestones as well. And I don't stop enough to remind myself to enjoy the journey. And so that trip was absolutely a reflection of how I move through life when I'm not enjoying the journey. And so Camino was the biggest experience where I enjoyed the journey more than I did the destination. When we actually got to Santiago, it was almost anticlimactic for me. I was actually sad because it was over. It was a representation that this experience for me was done. I'd reached the culmination of it. And so while it was difficult, it was beautifully difficult. It was beautifully painful. It was beautifully tragic. And getting to Santiago was in the biggest way the first time that I did not enjoy the destination. It was the journey for me.
I think that's the first time I've heard anybody refer to something as beautifully difficult or beautifully painful. Such an amazing yet complicated description. And I loved what she had to say about missing the journey because we're so focused on the destination. You know, how many times are we so worried about what happens next or what we don't have that we can't enjoy today, that we're not paying attention to now? You know, we can be so concerned about our dreams, our goals, what happens after graduation, after I get married, after retirement, or even after I die, that we lose focus on today. We miss the joy of the journey, even when it's difficult, maybe especially when it's difficult. And I'm not saying we don't plan ahead. I'm not saying be irresponsible, but let's not miss what's in front of us. Let's not miss this journey, the path to get to the destination, and enjoy that. So maybe that means we need to take a step back from things. If you didn't take our challenge from the last episode, check out the links in the description. We'll also put in there the series that we did on prayer, which might be helpful as well. Our next story is about a nursing student who needed to take some time away, but also in this process realized her connection to other people needed to go beyond the phone. It's a good one. I'm Kyle Hyman from Mac Studios, and until next time, God bless.